What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Beneath the Hood. My name is AC Johnny. I'm joined by Mr. Bubba. Bubba, how's it going tonight?
Going good. Just another night. Excited to do the podcast. We've got another fun episode. I think every episode's super fun, but we've got one that's getting into the lore of Assassin's Creed today. And so I'm going to get nerdy. I will say, though, before you get into it, there will be major spoilers for the early, actually, frankly, just about all the games.
All of them.
But especially the early games. Like, a lot of spoilers here. So, just so you know, we're going to keep going. But, heavy spoilers.
You've been warned. And also, it's been, for some of these spoilers, they're 20 years old. So
they are 20 years old.
They're literally, most of what we're talking about is like 15 to 20 years old.
Yep.
So, but yes, it's been snowy over here in Boston. We were just talking about it before we hit record here, but so what, you had a little bit of snow and then nothing and then it went away?
Yeah. So I'm in Utah. We usually have, our slogan is the greatest snow on earth. We had the Olympics here in 2002, the Winter Olympics, and we're having them again for the next Winter Olympics. It's here in 2032 in Utah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're doing it again. We've got like all the infrastructure for it. We've kept all of the arenas and we've got everything. We're totally built out for it. But yeah, this year we've had the least amount of snow I think we've had ever. My wife's sitting right here, so I had to check. She's from Utah. So anyways, yeah, it's been sad. We've had California weather this whole time. We had like a foot of snow and then it melted in 2 days. So, but
you're not from Utah?
I was born in California.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But
okay.
I've been in Utah since I was like 8. So.
Okay, fair enough. Wow. So have you ever been over East Coast, Bubba?
No. Well, okay, like Disney World. I don't think that counts. And I was like 5. But I've always
kind of.
I mean, Johnny, you know this. I'm a huge, obviously just a history buff, but the Revolutionary period is like my favorite time in history. Even before AC3. It's actually funny. In 8th grade, I was taking a U.S. history class, and I was in 8th grade when AC3 came out. And I passed that class with flying colors because of AC3. Like, dead ass, that is why I passed that class. And my history teacher was very aware of it. She's like, oh, yeah, like, I've heard of that game. Like, I've heard it's really accurate, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. Like, I've been to the Battle of Bunker Hill, dude. Like, I totally know what happened. So, yeah.
Well,
so I've always wanted to go out to Boston and see, like, the history sites and...
Take the fam. Let's go. Get over here. I can give you a personal tour. I mean, this is all. It's literally. I could get to the Old North Church in about 18, 19
I am
minutes.
Still heartbroken that I didn't get to see you when you came to Utah to go to Zion's National Park.
I was in like the bottom corner. I didn't want to bother you. Wasn't it like 3 hours away from you?
Yeah, but whatever. 3 is shorter than 24.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but I saw your pictures and they looked phenomenal. Zion's is amazing.
It was actually we were talking about it summer. My girlfriend and I that was one of the greatest days of our whole life when we were in that. We did the Narrows hike, which is like it's in this like canyon river, and you're hiking in this river. It's like ankle deep water. It was the most amazing thing I've ever done. It's the most amazing she ever did. It put us on this whole like, oh, we want to do national parks. Like that was the first one we really did. And it put us on this thing of like, oh, there's like nothing cooler. Let's go do as many as we can. So, and it's all thanks to Utah. So thank you to your state for that because
we got plenty more here in Utah. Did you do Angel's Landing when you were there?
We saw it. I wanted to do it. My sweet and loving girlfriend thinks I'm too clumsy and klutzy to do it. She's just worrying. There's like a 60% chance I fall and die. So I would have taken it. It looked kind of cool, but whatever.
Really, like, it is breathtaking. That is like the hike to do. Like it sounds kind of funny. You're like, how good can like a view be? That is like the view of all views. It's incredible. But you still get it, you get a good taste for Zion's and all the other hikes and stuff. But yeah, that one, it is kind of a scary hike. There's a lot of places I mean, if you're super clumsy, maybe there's people that die on that maybe every year. But
I am not. I sort of am. I fall often. Anyway, Yeah. So, and Bubba, I've been seeing you. You've been streaming. So you finished KCD2, and yet you're still streaming KCD2.
Yes, yeah. There's a
Just
DLC.
can't get
I
enough.
got like the gold edition when I bought it, so I have all the
Yeah.
DLCs, or at least one of them, I think. And so I've been doing the Legacy of the Forge DLC, which has been fun. Very casual, right? It's like my streams are like, come in and hang out if you want, but I'm not going to be that talkative. Like I'm just vibing, dude.
It's a wonderful time for those of you. Like I usually catch like only some of it because I'm usually literally getting into bed and it's like 12:30.
Yeah. Johnny's tours it, and I usually start my stream at like 10 p.m. my time, so it's already midnight for you.
Yeah,
but
right.
I turn off my lights because I've got like overhead rainbow. Everything's rainbow in here. Freaking rainbow cloud lights on the ceiling. I've got like bars of lights everywhere. But I've also got my like camera light here so you can see my face. I've like ended that era. Like I don't even care if you see my freaking face on my stream. It's like I don't want a light beaming in my face when I'm playing a freaking video game. So I'm just gonna turn on my TV, and if I don't care what I look like, I'm gonna be on my freaking recliner, chilling out, playing games.
The era, I remember this era. Another like little side note here, like back when it was you and Fuzzy, and you guys would stream, and you had all like the wheels, and you had all like the alerts and all this.
Yeah.
And I have to like, so this is how I met Bubba a long, long time ago. He was streaming Odyssey, and of course on my Assassin's Creed TikTok, it came by, and I was watching him for a while. I was like, this is cool. And then he was doing these Uncharted streams, and when I tell you, I was like locked. Like, and this was back when I was in college, so I had so much more time, and I'd stay up way later. So like, I wasn't working, so it would be like, yeah, he'd start at like 10. It'd be midnight and I'd settle in, and I literally one night I was like, I'm getting a pizza and I'm watching some Uncharted.
Hey, I freaking love that. That's so fun.
It was the best time. I miss those days big time. So it's nice to see you back in streaming. It's really from what I can catch, quite relaxing. The new vibe I'm a huge fan of. So
Yep, yeah, definitely getting cozy vibes. It is fun though, and I want to keep streaming. It's it's hard with. Well, and then there's nights that I want to play games with buddies, and I don't want to stream that. It's like, I just want to hang out with some people, and so I really don't only do it like 1 or 2 days a week. I used to do it every single night, but life. But yeah, I do love
here we are. Yep.
One of these days I'll stream an Assassin's Creed game. I kind of want to go back to some of the OG games and stream though. Actually, I've also wanted to do Syndicate again. I only played Syndicate the one time, and it was on stream in like this kind of setup where I was like locked in on the chat, not so much on the game. But I remember the combat and the stealth in that game I thoroughly enjoyed.
It's a big improvement on Unity. You've only played it once, so yeah, you gotta go back. It's a gem, and I've been like, I have this plan. It's gonna start this year. I'm going to do a full playthrough, and I'm going to be like AC1 all the way down the line. It's been years since I've done it. I need to do it, and I'm going to make a ton of content about it. I'm going to do full playthroughs. I'm going to do full walkthroughs, clips. Everything's going to be geared toward the game that I'm on at that moment, and I'm really, really excited for it. I don't know when I'm going to start it. Maybe I'll do it this summer or something like that, but perhaps you could join me for when I do, because
I would love that.
It might be
I really
fun.
would.
Even if you dip in and out, like while I'm playing AC2 and you want to play it alongside me, or Black Flag or AC3 or something like that, and you can't play all of them in the series or whatever. Even if you want to like dip in and play alongside for 1 or 2 of them, that'd be wicked fun.
Dude, I would also love to do. I mean, the time difference is so hard, but there's like so many good co-op games out there that are so fun. Like I've always wanted to like co-stream a co-op game where you get to see like both perspectives. I did a bit of a co-op stream with a buddy of mine on A Way Out, which is a co-op like prison escape game. That was a lot of fun until I got banned from TikTok for 2 weeks because it showed man ass cheeks in the game. And like literally it's just like his butt cheeks, and they banned me for like weeks, and I was so mad about it. But meanwhile, like at the time, TikTok was having this big problem with like straight up titties on the app all over the place.
I remember that.
And I was like, dude, literally, these are animated man cheeks. You don't even see anything else. And I'm getting banned for this crap. So anyways, I was mad. But yeah.
That was the dark days. Anyway, we don't have to talk about those dark days. But yes. One day we'll co-op it up. We used to do the Unity streams together, but
those are
anyway,
fun.
Back to Assassin's Creed. So the topic for tonight. We're both pretty passionate about this topic. This topic is central to Assassin's Creed, or at least it once was. And we wanted to really deep dive into it, go back to the beginning, and explain what it is, what it means to the franchise, and how it kind of interacts with the story. And that topic is the Isu race. We're going to go top to bottom. Who are they? What are they? How do they start? Why are they significant? And why, the important question of this entire conversation, the whole reason we wanted to do this, is why is it so important to this franchise? And why is it a problem that they're moving away from it? So, Bubba, would you like to start at the very, very, very beginning to give like some background on what the Isu actually are for those of who maybe are newer fans, or if they are people who played the games 15 years ago, because that's entirely a possibility.
Yeah, so that's a great way to intro this. Thanks, Johnny. That new players really I don't think understand the Isu at all, because they've basically not been in any of the recent games, and the extent that they have been in the games, they haven't been name dropped as being Isu or precursors or the ones who came before. Like, they really are just like there randomly, and it's like super deep lore. And so it is not only easy to miss, it's like impossible to catch at that rate. So, but in the original games, the first like 10 games even, that was a pivotal part of Assassin's Creed. In fact, the early games were almost like, 60%, Ezio and Altair, and then 40% Desmond and Isu, and like modern day stuff, right? It was so a big part of the game, and so much has changed. And so to kind of like, we want to roll back the dial a little bit and explain who are the Isu, where they come from, why are they important, what's going on, and why are they no longer in the game. So starting kind of at the beginning, the Isu are the original people of Earth. Humans did not exist. That's why we call them precursors, or the ones who came before, because they became before humans. And they were essentially gods. Not only because they created humans, but also because they had a higher being, and they had more abilities and powers that humans don't. And so, humans were known for having 5 senses. Isu have 6. And that 6th sense is really this ability to see time and kind of where you exist in reality to such a greater extent. And so what that looks like for the Isu is that they have almost a perfect knowledge of what came before. They're very aware of the present, but they kind of think of it like this. They are very good at math. And so they can borderline see into the future and know what's going to happen, and then how to adjust their calculations and adjust their actions in the present to adjust that future to be the future that they want. And so the Isu lived for a very long time, and they became an extremely advanced civilization because of this ability. Like, imagine if you could see the future and alter the future based off of probabilities and calculations that you're currently doing, and then re-look into the future to see how that's going to turn out. That's like the craziest superpower you can imagine. And so it all worked out great until one day they saw in the future, in the kind of the nearish future, there was going to be a giant solar flare coming from the sun, bigger than they've ever had before, that was going to annihilate the Earth. And they kept looking in the future, and they could not find any way to solve this. And so at this time, before the solar flare happens, the Isu create the humans. And the humans are created literally for slavery. Like, that's it. They are the workforce of the Isu. And so they're created by the Isu, but they also hold a little bit of Isu DNA, because they're made after the image of the Isu. Like, Isu look just like humans, except they're all glowing and golden and whatever. But they make these humans, and they make these tools, this technology, to control the humans. Because the humans have their own DNA in them, they're actually kind of hard to control or to have them obey naturally. And so they have to make technology that basically Bluetooth connects to the human DNA to force us to be obedient and to listen to whatever they want us to do. So that's where the pieces of Eden come from. where you've got the apple of Eden and the staff of Eden and the sword of Eden and all these artifacts, was they all have different purposes, but their main theme is control humans to stay slaves, right? And so, after a long time, there was this big falling out where essentially Adam and Eve, they have a lot of parallels there, but
So
Adam
many.
and Eve kind of break out of this cycle, and they're able to kind of wake up and begin this revolution of humans versus Isu, and there's this big war. Because the humans outnumber the Isu like 100 to 1. There's so many humans on the earth. And so, anyways, there's kind of like a lot of turmoil between the humans and the Isu, but this solar flare is coming. And the Isu recognize that like they are cooked no matter what. And so they kind of have different factions of Isu at this time. It's not like one planet government. It's like just like Earth today. There's different Isus that exist in different places. And so there were different groups of Isu that we know about that tried to solve for solutions on how to avoid everybody being annihilated, and then eventually moving on to if we are annihilated, what do we do moving forward? So like assuming that annihilation is inevitable, what do we do about that? Johnny, do you want to cover kind of like the idea with the shield and kind of how that happened / didn't happen?
Yeah, so basically there is, first there is the core group of Isu. I forget their name. It's like the triad, the something triad. It's like some big special group of the big three Isu who are coming together and putting their brains together to basically say, okay, how do we solve this? And those three are Juno, Minerva, and...
Isn't his name like Jupiter or something? Like
Jupiter?
It's one of the planets.
I was going to say Jupiter. Yes, he's definitely the least significant in the stories. He's the least prevalent.
He's like
It's
the
all,
leader.
Minerva
He's like the big honcho, but yeah, he's not
Yeah.
as prevalent in the games.
He's not as good. Minerva and Juno are constantly there. So basically, they're meeting and they're trying to figure out how they can overcome this great catastrophe that's coming. And to my knowledge, if you total up not just these three, but all of the different Isu groups and how they tried to figure this out, I think they came up with a total of 7 different solutions on how to do this. So their first try and their most surefire, the thing that they expected to work the best is they were going to build these towers, essentially these 4 towers. And these once activated, these 4 towers would basically put a shield around the world, around the globe, and this would protect the Earth from these solar flares. That was one of the options of how to beat this thing. Another one, they seem to be pretty obsessed with this idea of some of them thought okay, let my body die. I want to pass my consciousness on, and that way I can come back after the events of the Great Catastrophe. And so they came up with this technology to essentially put their consciousness and their soul in a piece of Eden. So this is done a couple of times. So this is done, I think, most prevalently in the staff of Hermes. I think we see Loki's wife. Essentially, Loki puts his wife's soul into it, and it's basically I will come for you after this thing. You're going to be in there, you're going to be safe. And he knew it was going to be a good place for it because the staff of Hermes, one of its abilities, basically all pieces of Eden's grant different sort of abilities or defensive or offensive capabilities or healing properties or all these things. And the staff of Hermes just so happens to make you immortal. So he said, okay, that's a good place to put your soul. So they did this, they had this kind of philosophy about putting their soul and their consciousness into items so that when their body dies, they can basically come out the other side. And another kind of play on this same idea was going on the Norse side of things. So Odin and that pantheon of Norse gods over there, instead of putting them into objects, they essentially would put their consciousness into beings, basically, into people down the line. And they started what I believe is called the Sage Program. This was, I believe the Sage Program is like idea number 7, if you put them all together. It was kind of more of an offshooty kind of one, and it kind of derived itself from this one. I think Juno came up with the idea of putting consciousness in items. I think Oh God, I might misspeak here. This is from old memory. I didn't actually see this in any research or anything like that, but I think she put her husband, I want to say, in the shroud or something like that, and basically this idea of putting your consciousness in a piece of Eden is more things that Juno was working on, and then the Odin was working on the Sage program and the World Tree and all these other ways to connect people and put consciousness and plant their consciousness into people so that, again, they can just kind of come out okay on the other side. So in the first games, we see it's more this triad, this big three, and it's you're interacting a lot with Minerva, and Juno's kind of playing this mysterious antagonist who's like kind of working against you the whole time, and is quite a thorn in the side of Desmond, which I don't want to get ahead of myself in the games here in the timeline, but remind me, I just rambled. We're still on the first catastrophe, yes?
Yeah, well, and you're I think you're right on the right track here. So, we mentioned there's different factions of Isu. Johnny talked about Odin and like the Norse mythology of gods. The kind of a thing to note here is that there's a lot of gods that we know from mythology that they in Assassin's Creed were just Isu. So Odin and Loki and Thor, they were all real Isu that were, fantasized to being these deities because their stories were passed down through humans, and their oftentimes artifacts or temples were left behind where, these Vikings are finding this ancient Isu temple that is way, way beyond their understanding. And so they treat it as some, like deity, god temple. And they learn about these stories. And so, sorry, go ahead.
Just jut in really quick here. So this kind of passing on of tradition and word of mouth comes from the fact that here we are at the first great catastrophe, they're calling it. The Great Catastrophe was the first event. I think it happened in 75,000 BC or something ridiculous, like super long ago. And it wiped out. This was during the uprising of Adam and Eve and the humans versus the Isu. And while they were clashing, it kind of hit, and it wiped out majority of the Isu. And it wiped out a ton of the humans. And so now everything's kind of in rubble and in shambles. And the humans now, this is what Bubba was talking about, now what's left of the humans after the catastrophe, they're not interacting with the Isu anymore. They're not really being enslaved by the Isu anymore because there's not that many left to enslave them, essentially. So they're more free, and because of that, the Isu turned into sort of this kind of myth and this, like, rumor, and that's where you get stories of, for instance, Ragnarok in the Norse sect of the Isu is a classic Norse story, which they've now twisted and said that's the Great Catastrophe is actually what Ragnarok really was. It wiped out all the gods and all this, and the humans are just left to talk about it. So the Isu are now at this point more of a myth and much less present in everyday human life, and the humans are left to rebuild for the rest of history.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so easy to get lost in the sauce because it sounds like there's just one giant timeline from start to finish, but they're so not, because they're told in the old games and then restarted in the new games, but they keep going back to different points in history and modern day and Isu day. And so, like, it's just all over the place. It's this crazy soup of history. But yes, like what Johnny was saying, essentially with that shield idea that he talked about, they tried to shield, they were doing calculations into the future to see, okay, can we shield the whole Earth? And the answer was no, because there's not enough, these towers that we built are drawing power from the Earth, and that takes time, and time is not on their side. The shield wouldn't be powerful enough to block it. Okay, well, can we do just a continent? No. Can we do just a city? No. And so the shield idea was not going to work because time, again, the time was fleeting, and they didn't have enough time to suck energy and to create this shield to protect people. And so the catastrophe happens, and my understanding is all of the Isu die. There are no Isu left over.
Okay.
And the only reason why the humans survive is because of pure numbers. Because the Isu were really brought down to a really small quantity of people because of these wars going on with the humans. and the humans outnumbered them like 1,000 to 1. It was crazy how many humans there were. So the humans found a way to survive underground until after the catastrophe happens. They kind of resurface after hundreds of years, and that's where humanity is now humanity, and that's why there's no more Isu existing as living Isu in the quote-unquote modern day or human day. And so they saw that was coming. They knew that there was no way around this, and so that's where they came up with these other ideas, like Johnny mentioned, the Sage program, putting your soul into an artifact, which kind of ends up being a struggle because that means you're stuck in that artifact, and they kind of touch on that. But so, and we'll kind of touch on those a little bit more later because that's in the later games that becomes more apparent. But when it comes to those three people, Minerva, Juno, and Jupiter, those were like these three that were brainstorming. And Juno, I don't remember exactly what she did, but she pretty much became like a traitor because they found out that her intentions were she wanted to use the technology they were talking about to save herself. And so then she could survive the Great Catastrophe, and then she could enslave humanity and like become this great ruler. And so when they found that out, that she was trying to do this for a grab for power, they basically killed her body and imprisoned her immortal soul in one of the temples in North America, one of the Isu temples. And so she's like kind of alive, like her soul is in this temple. But in the meantime, Minerva specifically says, okay, I can see probabilities in the future, way into the future. And so and we see that not only is this first catastrophe going to happen, but there's a second one, like thousands upon thousands of years after the first catastrophe, it's going to happen again. And there's not going to be any Isu remaining, it's just going to be humans. But Minerva had compassion on the humans, and she wanted to try to attempt to save them because she knew that they would be in no place to have the technology that the Isu had. If the Isu failed, then there's no way in hell that the humans are going to survive unless they can find a way to have them use the technology that they had set prior. Because then by that point, there's enough energy that it had built up to maybe have the shield work this time. Yeah. And so she starts to send messages into what we know as the past. But really it was for her the distant future where it was just humans. And she's leaving messages behind in these temples because she knows that specific humans that are important in history are going to be visiting these places. And she needs to get this message to them about all of the history of the Isu and what's going to happen, and they need to prepare for it because it's going to be happening in the year 2012. And so can you touch on the point of kind of where Altair, Ezio, and Desmond come into play? Because those three, and Connor, because those four people are very intertwined with this Minerva story, with Minerva using those ancestors to speak to Desmond.
Yeah, you might have to help me with the Altair part of this because I haven't played AC1 in years and I totally forget exactly.
Altair is really just the apple. There's not really Minerva going on. It's really just he finds the piece of Eden, the apple.
Okay, yeah. Okay, it's more about the piece of Eden. And Ezio as well. Well, first, let me pause really quick because Bubba just set it up perfectly.
I hope so. I'm trying to like pass it back and forth. I don't want to.
No. Because
I'm like the lore guy, and I'm trying not to like take up too much of the lore conversation here.
No, take up all. You explain it much better than I do. But the when I was listening to you there, I was thinking like, he just set the stage for the first five games in this series. The first 5 games of this series is this ridiculously complex, lore-rich, fascinating, unique story about how these ancient people saw into the future and tried to leave clues for humanity to find throughout history to hopefully save themselves from this second great catastrophe. That's
a crazy way to start a video game.
crazy way, not even to start a video game, to tell a story over 5 games, 5 years. Like this is the kind of, when you play through these old games and you play through the new games, that is the palpable difference, is like what I'm doing matters. What I'm doing as Ezio, because Ezio is why? This is the question I think should be asked always when you play an Assassin's Creed game to figure out, if it's a good one or not, is essentially, why am I in the Animus? And that's the question we're asking. So, to bring it to Desmond, to bring it to the characters in the games, to bring it to real life, the Templars and the Assassins both want the pieces of Eden. The Templars want it to control humans. The Assassins' main motivation for getting the pieces of Eden is so that the Templars don't have it to control people. So while doing this, you begin to uncover everything that we just talked about. So technically, they're kind of separated in that way, where there's 2 conflicts going on. Correct me if I'm explaining this incorrectly here, Bubba, but when you're Desmond and you're being brought in and they're working in the Animus, originally, what's his name? Oh, who's the original? The original
Subject
Desmond
15?
with the blue.
Or 16?
Yes, Subject 15. Does he have a name?
He does. I don't remember his name.
I forget it. Anyway, he's brought in by the Templars to basically, by Abstergo, to find the artifacts and to use their abilities, because all these, artifacts have special abilities, and that's basically the surface level stuff, and that's all the Templars really care about. Desmond goes in, and he's looking into the past, into Ezio, into Altair, and he's trying to locate these artifacts that Minerva placed, and the pieces of Eden that are placed in, under the Vatican, or in, God, where's the one in Rome? Is there one in Rome?
Yes. I think that's the Vatican one.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. What am I saying? Yes. Sorry. I went from game to game. But yes, it's all about the apple and the staff. And it's all these, they're finding these artifacts. And that's when you get the coolest moment at the end of AC2, where you are now, as Desmond, in the Animus, living Ezio's life. And you find this piece of Eden. And Ezio, of course, is like, oh, we found this magical apple, wow, and the Borgias are after it and all this stuff. But you get that moment in the vault with Minerva talking through Ezio to Desmond, and it's the coolest moment in Assassin's Creed, where it all connects for once, where it's Assassins, it's Templars, it's modern day, it's Isu, and that is the moment where that kind of line draws between all of them to make this really cool moment. And there's a couple of them throughout the series, but it's, so you ask yourself when you're playing, why am I Connor? And it's because, Connor's tribe has an apple, essentially, and we want to know where that apple is as the modern day Assassins. We want to take it so that the Templars don't get it. And basically where AC3 leaves you, what they figure out, what Desmond figures out and the Assassins in the modern day figure out is, we can activate these towers, essentially, and get them to work as well. We've had enough time to build them, yada, yada, yada. Desmond has to essentially activate these towers, and then he's left with this choice. Here we are in 2012, which is also a really cool tie-in, by the way, the whole Aztec calendar, 2012, world's ending.
And I mean, before we get to the end of the world, put yourself in the shoes of Minerva for a second. Minerva, all of this is based off of calculation. She can't actually look into the future, so she doesn't know for an absolute fact that her messages are going to be seen by the humans. But what she can do is run calculations and assume probabilities of saying, okay, the highest probability of this person existing at this time and being in this place is significantly high for whatever reason. Right, and that's kind of their technology, and that's their sixth sense that they have. That's inherent, and so she looks way into the future. She wants to warn the humans, but not just any humans. She needs to figure out which human is going to listen to me that can actually get the job done. who is going to be able to not only find the things that they need to find to get access to the temples, but who's going to have the DNA of the Isu in their blood to be able to access the actual ability in the temple to turn on the shield? Because that's another big part of it. And so she's looking way in the future, looking at billions of people and finding Desmond Miles. And finding that at that time in history, not only is he so closely related to this line of assassins, which are not, there's like Isu are not assassins. There's no correlation there. If anything, Isu are similar to Templars where they want to control everything. And then humans, early humans with the Isu times are like assassins where they want just freedom. And so she sees Desmond, who does have the right DNA, the right amount of Isu DNA left in him from his lineage, because that's part of the assassins. The assassins have this sixth sense. They call it their eagle vision, which is really just a muted version of Isu's sixth sense, where if you think of eagle vision, it's looking, you can kind of see through walls and see where people are going to go. If you remember in Revelations, Ezio's ability goes from I can see through walls to I know the path that this guard is going to be taking. That is specifically the Isu power of being able to see probabilities into the future, right? And so he's really able to tap into that. And so Desmond has this DNA in him, so he's able to access the temple. But at this time, and imagine the brain frick that's happening in Minerva's head, because she's seeing that there's this band of people called Templars that in the future become way more advanced than any other humans, and they build this technology that they can go and visit the memories of ancestors in your DNA and look at history with in 4K and relive these things, and they are going to kidnap Desmond. And the Templars are useless to Minerva because they are wanting to use these ancient artifacts to control humans. And so she's like, hey, nothing we can do about that. But this Desmond guy, if we can get the word out to him that the world is going to end and screw the assassins, screw the Templars, we have a way bigger problem here. Red alert, red alert. I need you to go find these artifacts that are being held or hunted by the Templars, take them and use them for the means of saving the world. And so she's finding that the best probabilities to get a hold of this guy and wring his freaking neck and say, listen to me, is by going into his ancestors in the 1400s, in the 1100s, in the Revolutionary era, and talking directly to his ancestors who have no idea what the hell is going on. They're like, what is this black magic? I'm seeing this image of this hologram of this god, and they know who I am. Like, they're calling me Ezio. But then they're speaking to Ezio and saying, Desmond, listen to me. And Ezio's like, who the hell is Desmond? And he learns as he grows into an old man that Desmond, he doesn't know who this Desmond guy is, but he's important. And, you know, Johnny kind of, and we're not going to get too deep into how cool that moment is, but when Ezio kind of talks to Desmond, because he's been a messenger, and he recognizes that he is a messenger for something larger, and he doesn't know what it is, and he never will. But, you know, Desmond is going into the memories of these ancestors, and the Templars didn't know about this. The Assassins didn't know about this. They didn't know about the Isu. They knew about the Pieces of Eden, but they just thought they were powerful artifacts. And so he's learning about the Isu race. He's learning about the end of the world, and he's learning that he's essentially this chosen one that needs to not only escape the grasp of the Templars, but go find these pieces of Eden that his ancestors hid from the Templars in their day and utilize them to access this temple and save the world. So that is like the definition of cooking when it comes to this story.
Cooking.
Like it is so, and it's so much deeper than I just even explained it. There's so many details that it goes into, but then where Johnny just got left off here, it all happens. It's the end of the world. It's 2012. It's cool because, you know, the Aztec calendar thing was a cool thing back then, right? And the solar flare is coming. And the shield is ready to be turned on, but he needs to access the temple to turn it on. But there's somebody waiting for him. I'm going to pass the baton to you.
It is Juno. And
She's stuck in
basically,
that temple. That temple.
she gives him this weird, I guess it's not really an ultimatum, I guess. It's more of like the reality where
Yeah.
it's like
Vision of the
you
future.
you can either like activate this thing and save, essentially have the solar flares be warded off and save humans and all this stuff, and at least postpone the catastrophe. However, if you do that, I will be freed, and I will then, and she tells him like point blank, she's like, that's why ultimatum is not the right word. It's like, this is the reality of the situation. If you do this and you save the humans, I'm gonna come out of here and I'm going to enslave all of you and become all great and all powerful.
Yep.
Or the alternative is to just kind of let it hit like it did in the back in the day and let the survivors rebuild. And correct me, Bubba, here, but Minerva kind of pushes Desmond to not free Juno. Is that correct? Like, you're kind of supposed to think like, oh, like, don't do it. Like, don't you let it shoot. Minerva, I think, believed that the lesser evil was to keep Juno enslaved and let, the survivors of the humans carry on.
Yeah, Juno pulled the heist of the century because she of humanity, because when she was put in that temple as a prison, they didn't realize that she would actually, how pivotal that temple would be, and that she would kind of connect herself with the shield, the world shield, and by activating that shield that she would be released. And so when Minerva left all those messages for Desmond, she did not realize that Juno had this master plan. Like, Juno was one step ahead this whole time. And so Juno's personage is also in this temple. I don't remember. Maybe it was just like right before the solar flare hit or something that she trapped herself in this temple as well. And so they've been there together the whole time or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember exactly how Minerva is also there, but she's there. And she's telling Desmond, and Desmond's like, "What the heck, dude? You told me, you've led me my whole life for this moment, and now you're telling me not to do it?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, because let me show you what I can see. The future of if you let Juno take over, everything will suck. But if you don't, then humanity will have a chance." But then Juno's saying, "Yeah, but if you let humanity have a chance, after, if you let humanity get destroyed, they're going to treat you like a god, Desmond. And they're going to have, there's going to be this great reset in the world, and these evil, evil factions are going to rise up, and they're going to treat you as a god. And your ancestors are going to be the worst evil people ever, and it's going to be this weird cult thing." And that's kind of the painting that Juno paints for Desmond, and he's like freaked out by that. He's like, "That seems like hell. How is that a better option?"
Yeah. It's so essentially AC3 ends by Desmond making the decision that it's funny. It is funny when you have all these calculations and predictions come out, and yet it's still up to Desmond in the end to do what he wants to do. He goes against Minerva's wishes. He gives into his own conscience, and he says, "I have to save the world." He activates the towers. In doing so, releases Juno from her prison, essentially, and dies in the process. He sacrifices himself to save everybody else. That is your AC1 to AC3, and truthfully, that what we've been talking about for the last half hour, a lot of that is squished into the last 3 minutes of AC3, where you get this big CG cutscene and this big explanation and everything. Basically, if you're in AC3 for the first time, you have a stupid amount of questions that are unanswered from all the games prior, and it all culminates to this one moment. And so this is where the franchise after AC3 takes a bit of a step in a new direction. Desmond's dead. They go through this first person modern day kind of side of things, and this is where you start to see some more some different. This is where you see a sage for the first time in Black Bart, where you are now dealing with Isu coming back after all the events of AC3, and Abstergo's still kind of doing their thing and looking for these pieces of Eden, and they have this sage who is evil and tricking your modern day persona, whoever it is. And I think they do something extremely similar in Rogue. The modern day of Rogue is totally escaping me, but I remember being like, oh, this is kind of like Black Flag kind of.
It is, yeah, very similar.
And so is that John Standish in that one, or is that?
I'm
I
not
think
sure who
it
that
might be. Essentially, John Standish, I think, was Juno's husband. I think that's who she eventually put him into.
His name, he's got some Isu name, but yeah, he's in Black Flag. You see him twice as a sage. You see him as that pirate guy.
Okay,
Black Bart.
Yeah,
I think you said his name.
Yep.
That is Juno's husband. He did this sage
Okay,
program.
that's who it
so
is.
he's been around the block actually. He's been reincarnated, where basically the human is still himself, but there's some sages are more powerful than others, where it's like the human really takes a step back, and then the Isu really takes over the body of the human. So it's like a human Isu, where they have all the memories and all of the knowledge of an Isu, and their agenda, which in this case for Juno's husband, it's to give Juno a body, because Juno's spirit has been released. It's free. She needs to gain a body back, and the Shroud of Eden is how they are going to do that. So they build a clone
that's what I was
of
thinking,
Juno's body. And yeah, so like AC4, AC Rogue, like it's kind of that's crazy, weird first person. You do learn a lot about kind of what happened, but
this is where, taking a more step back out of the Assassin's Creed lore, you start to look at their kind of business strategy here from a Ubisoft perspective of that was extremely complicated and probably too hard for people to follow if they wanted to pick up in AC3 or AC Revelations. Like, you probably had to just do the whole thing. They kind of wanted to reset it. They made Black Flag. They do this first-person thing. There are still a lot of Isu stuff and Sage stuff, but, like, pieces of, like, essentially, especially when you get to Unity and Syndicate, there is a clear, like, decision-making, business decision. There's no modern day gameplay. And this is something that, like, okay, nobody really goes crazy for modern day gameplay as long as there's a story. And they kind of did it in these really minimal cutscenes in Unity and Syndicate. Like, it was almost something that they were like, okay, we have to put these in. We have to, or else it's not Assassin's Creed without modern day. So they made these cutscenes. And in Syndicate and in Unity, they introduced these pieces of Eden. They have this Sword of Eden, or whatever it's called. I think it's the Sword of Eden in Unity that's like shoots lightning and is really cool looking. And then they have the Shroud of Eden, which has some real story significance. But it's a clear step back. You don't get nearly as much information on these things.
Yeah.
And then, at this point, the reputation of the franchise is doing this. And Unity comes out and it's glitchy, and nobody cares about the modern day, and Desmond's dead, so nobody cares about that. So they say, okay, we're going to write a comic book. We're going to kill Juno in the comic book. So I think Syndicate leaves off with, like, Juno, like, laughing, ha, 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 I'm back in my body and all this stuff. And then they enter they literally, like, it's so clear that Ubisoft is like, we need to start fresh. So they kill her in a comic book, which is extremely controversial. I don't even know. I've never read it. I don't actually know the story of it. But from a game perspective, they take a 2-year break for the first time in a very, very long time. And then they drop Assassin's Creed Origins. You have a brand new modern day protagonist for the first time since AC3, like a third person protagonist. You're not first person. We're not doing cutscenes. You have Layla Hassan, this actual protagonist who is going to tie together the next 3/4, if you include Mirage, like 3.5 games.
Well, and before you move on that, because this is like this and the story of Assassin's Creed Unity are the things that I'm like most passionate about, with like saying, Ubisoft, you effed up and how dare you. Them killing Juno off in a comic book, Juno was the big bad. She was the emperor, right? She was like this. Everyone thought that this was leading to a modern day game where Desmond or somebody was the modern day protagonist, and you're in this dystopian future, kind of like Watch Dogs, style game, where it's like, or Cyberpunk, right? Where you're in the future as Desmond, and now you've got to see what assassins were back in the day, and now you're seeing the assassins and Templars with technology in the real world today, in like in the modern day. And Juno's this mastermind puppeteer controlling everything and gaining more power over the humans. It didn't just happen overnight. Like, she's gaining power. Not what happened at all. They say, yeah, we just need to do a hard reset. Let's refresh. And so in a comic book, they have a clone of Juno's body. Her spirit goes in it. She's back. And I'm kidding you not, the second that she gets out of like the container where her body was being held, an assassin jumps off of like a banister and stabs her and kills her. And that's it. That's a wrap. That is equivalent to somehow Palpatine returned. That is the same effing thing where it's like, how the hell did the Emperor return? How does this make sense in the slightest? Them bringing Palpatine back is like them getting rid of Juno in a comic book by being stabbed by a metal blade in the neck.
I mean,
like,
even if that happened in a game, that's like overly insulting to someone who has just sunk probably 120 hours.
It spits on the fans. It's just saying everything that you've enjoyed. And I get it. There was a lot of fans that didn't like the modern day, but it wasn't because of the story. It was because of they didn't like the Desmond gameplay, and that's it. But the story was
not
cooking.
Why you play. The story was cooking, and it is. You're right. It is a really big deal and a really big problem, and they took such an interesting turn at this point of the RPGs because they didn't sideline the Isu. They sidelined like the Isu mattering to modern day, if that makes any sense, or not. That's not even true.
The importance of the story, the relevance to the story.
The relevance to the story is much less. So basically, you have Layla. She goes in as Bayek. There is minimal Isu stuff in this game, at least in the base game. I haven't played the DLCs, but the reason for this is to allow it to be a reboot, right? Yep. This is a let's move on. We don't need legacy knowledge. You don't really need to know what the Isu are. Let's move on. And Origins, almost 10 years later now, is adored and very well received. So whatever reset they did, it did do a lot of the patchwork to forget about Juno, because a lot of people don't know about the comic book, by the way. Yeah. Casual fans don't know what the hell happened to Juno. If you go from Syndicate to Origins, you don't do any research. The final scene of Syndicate is her like evil laughing, and then you start Syndicate and she's never seen again. So it's like, okay, what the hell? And then, so Origins comes around. And then Odyssey, they do kind of a 180. Odyssey's like, no assassins. This is an Isu game. You are dealing with this Isu artifact in the Spear of Leonidas, and this your Cassandra's like this, essentially this Isu, who or like a much closer descendant of an Isu than normal humans.
Isu DNA in her, yeah.
Yes, exactly. More Isu DNA, and she has these powers. She's a demigod, and she interacts. And that's what it is. Her father is Pythagoras, and Pythagoras got the staff of Hermes from Hermes himself. And this staff is a piece of Eden, of course. It's very famous in Greek mythology. And in Assassin's Creed, it makes you immortal. So now Cassandra is dealing with her Isu DNA, and I didn't play the Odyssey DLC, which I think I maybe should know about to do a podcast like this, because I think it's extremely Isu heavy.
Well, and I believe, have you and I I think we've done a podcast that we're kind of talking about the modern day, where we are today. Yes. You know, I think we did an episode kind of leading into Shadows, where we were today. Mm-hmm. So we can probably rehash. Johnny tonight is a little short on time, so I don't want to get too deep, because Valhalla actually gets hella deep. Like both Odyssey and Valhalla.
Valhalla cooks. Valhalla to me has that AC3 level of like mind blowing. Those same kind of moments in AC2 when they're talking, or Brotherhood 2. It's two when they're talking through Ezio, and like essentially Valhalla's entire relationship with the Isu is you have this new sect of Norse gods, and You relive the stories, the classic Norse stories, the Norse mythology stories through these dream sequences, which you'd start to realize are actually kind of going on around you, and you wonder why, and you start to figure out that Eivor is a sage, and then there's like, wait a minute, there's somebody else here as a sage who I've been working with for 70 hours, and of course now we know it's Basim, and it's essentially Loki used the sage program to implant himself, and he's into Basim, and the whole plan is Basim's wife is in the staff of Hermes. I think her name's Alethea, if I remember correctly, the Isu wife of Loki. His wife, Loki's wife, is in the staff, so his whole plan is to get Layla with the staff, who she got from Cassandra, into the World Tree so that he can get out of it into the future and essentially pick up the staff and be with his one true love. Essentially
that is the most hyper summary I've ever heard. Like that. If somebody hasn't played Valhalla, they're like, wait, what are you talking about? and we have done a whole episode on that. So like it's one of our
That's kind of why
ones. If you want to go look into that, go check that episode out. But long story short, with the modern day now, is they kind of started cooking again, specifically in Valhalla, where the Isu are much more prevalent, not in the form of ancient Isu leaving messages for assassins in an animus, but more so, there was a time during Eivor's day where there were multiple sages that all knew each other. All of these Isu were very intertwined, and they pop up in humanity again as sages, so basically Isu in human form. And they all start to realize that they are all sages, but they do not get along. And they all have their own agendas. And, think of Norse mythology, Loki and Odin and Thor and Sigurd, Tyr. And
they're not buddies. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's this, that's the meat of that story is we're not just telling a story about Eivor and Sigurd and Basim. We're actually, at the exact same time, telling a story secretly about the sages that live within them. But the sage program it's not as effective with each human. And so some humans, it's a really good pair, and the Isu takes over completely. Other humans, like Eivor, it doesn't. And Eivor really, really fights back against Odin, and Odin does not have control over Eivor. He's kind of in his head as like as a second identity within himself that he talks to a lot. And he doesn't take control. So they were cooking, and they went nowhere with it, because in Assassin's Creed Mirage and in Shadows, there's not a peep, not a single peep.
Hold on.
Okay,
there is
I guess
a peep
Mirage.
in Mirage. They do peep about it because Loki. Yeah. They show you how essentially it's like a sneak peek into what the hell's going on if you're a sage and you have this.
What happens in your mind?
Yeah, you have this really twisted thing.
That is so cool, by the way. Like the difference between how Basim became Loki and how Eivor did not become Odin. That is so cool, and like that, it's truly different how those two. That is a very cool aspect of it.
It is and so they were cooking. Even in Mirage, they were cooking because the title is Mirage because of the central plot point of the fact that the sage, the Loki in Basim's brain, is manifesting itself as this Nihal friend, a literal mirage. I mean, it is like they're still cooking in 2023. And then this is where I really want to. I'm praying Shadows is in Origins, right? Is a re-entry point in the franchise. Yes, we are left with another unfinished storyline. The modern day is totally cut off, and we haven't had any like official Isu stuff since the end of Mirage. He goes into this temple and he opens this like casket, which is essentially symbolizing like his Loki is his demon inside his head is hiding in there. That's the last bit of Isu anything, because Shadows comes around and we play 40, 50, 60 hours of this game and waiting for a piece of Eden, for an Isu temple, for anything. And this is the thing that makes me the most mad. Hard stop is the opening of Shadows is like this Abstergo cutscene. You are screamed at that you are in an animus right now. And you're even getting these little blips, and you see like that Revelations like animus box, and something evil, the dark animus is in there, and it's taking over. And there's this woman talking to you, and she's like, "Get out! Don't trust this," and whatever. And
lying to you.
I remember playing this and going, "Are we back?"
Yeah.
Lo and behold, nothing. That's
isn't
anything.
That's
that led to nothing. There's no DLC about it. There's nothing in the world about it. There's nothing you can find that touches it. The only thing they have, and this is as somebody who has played 150 hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows, they have this vault, this Animus vault, and I have like 70. They look like emails or passages or paragraphs of like things happening in modern day, and there's characters, and it is incredibly hard to find, by the way.
Does it even talk about Basim in those emails?
No, I don't think so. I've barely read them because my plan is I'm going to 100% this game and get all of them and then figure out what the hell they're trying to cook. But this is something that is like, if we thought that it was the back burner in Unity and Syndicate, this is like 7 layers deeper than that. It's actually hard to find this vault in the menus. They're hiding it so deep, and they don't want it to bog down the game, and they don't want it to restrict people from playing it. And if you listen to the passion that we had about talking about this stuff in the first half hour, just going over what the hell they were talking about in the first 5 games, and how complex this story is, and how unique to this franchise this Isu thing is, and these people are, and the way that they interact with the past, present, future, all this stuff going on to line up to this beautiful, wonderful story. And then they boil it down a little bit more, and then they kind of do it a little, they start to cook again, and then Shadows comes and cuts it all down again. It feels like the Juno thing again. It feels like we did this 10 years ago in Syndicate, and now 2025 comes around and they're like, cut it again, like start over again. And that they just haven't even, it started over. They've lost the identity of what makes Assassin's Creed so special. It's not even compelling characters. It's not even Templars versus Assassins. As we've talked about, that was kind of a somewhat shallow, confrontation going on, while this Isu modern day world-ending storyline is what matters. And they not only haven't used it, they've purposefully neglected it. And that is where I find it funny when somebody tells me something like, "Oh, Valhalla is not even an Assassin's Creed. You're not an assassin." To me, that's perfectly Assassin's Creed. It's all this Isu stuff going on in the background that you have to uncover through a lot of side quests, and you get all these interesting sage stuff going on. That's far more Assassin's Creed than something that Shadows has turned into, which is more than any other game in the series, just a history simulator. You're just running around Japan. There's so little Isu anything. There is one little side quest they put in the game, but this is almost a year after release they added this. So if you couldn't tell, it is frustrating, and it's heartbreaking because they took what makes this series special and they purposefully sidelined it for new fans to be able to digest what's going on, and it hurts these fans that they've had for 20 years now.
Yeah, that's perfectly put. And it truly is. They've created a game specifically catered to the casual fan base, where they've stripped away everything that was truly interesting about it, and they said, what does 90% or 80% of our player base truly care about? Good graphics, good fighting, cool setting. That's it. And that's what they've made. And the thing is with that is not as good as a game, as an RPG it was. The story was so lacking. They had us in the first half of Shadows. I think the story of the people that we're looking at, just similar to Ezio, like you've got Naue and Yasuke and Oda Nobunaga, that was really good. They could have dialed that to an 11 if for the second half of the game, they're really getting intertwined with this Isu Sage stuff. and you're realizing that, oh my gosh, there are some additional Isu sages that maybe we're going to have another modern day Isu, or maybe there's some other character that's going to be looped into the modern day with Bassam. So it's not just Bassam in the world of modern day. Maybe it's other Isu, and we're kind of having this like Isu renaissance happen. There's so many things they could have done to make it make sense. They could have done anything, stick it on the wall, like it literally anything at all. But instead they tease us at the start of the game and then they do nothing. No DLC, no hidden content in emails or anything, collectibles that tells you anything additional. And that, the Isu, the modern day, that is what like you said, makes Assassin's Creed different and special. It's not just a historical game. Because now it's just a simulator, and it's not even an accurate one at that. It's like a fantasy one. But now you've taken out what makes it, interesting. But what I love about in-depth stories and lore is when you play a game like The Witcher, or you play a game like even like Cyberpunk. Those are both CD Projekt Red, but you play a game that has intense lore. You're diving in, going, whoa, I'm loving what I can understand, but I'm also realizing that this is way beyond me. And that the story, there's like things going on that I don't understand. Who's that person? They name drop somebody there. I don't understand that reference. That's what I love, is that gives it replayability. That gives you passion to go back and go, let me learn about this world. This is the Isu, what is that? And so making this interesting lore, like even in Star Wars, it's not just the Sith and the Jedi. There's so many cool things with like Mandalorian bounty hunter history, and the history of even beyond like the ancient Sith, and before it was the rule of two in Star Wars, again to do a parallel, because it goes way beyond the movies, and that's what makes Star Wars so everlasting. And so they've just taken that out, and it's not everlasting. It's just a combat simulator, and it's a shame. So I'm really hoping that the reason why we truly had nothing is because the team that made it this isn't really their forte, and they were seriously playing it safe this time. And so I'm hoping whatever the hell comes next, if it's an Assassin's Creed Hex, that they come back to their roots and they don't just let it go.
What you're talking about, is world building. That's like, it's like Lord of the Rings, where it's so clear when you watch Lord of the Rings that you're just looking at one little sequence of events that happened in this massive
That's
ancient
a big
world.
one. Yeah, great example.
And you feel like it. You feel like I don't know anything about this world. And the lack of explanation is the beautiful part. The confusion is what makes it immersive. If you know everything, what fun is that? Like, I know Japan was a place. Why do I could read a book. I could play Ghost of Tsushima. Has like some like even Japanese fantasy that sounds cool and stuff like that. Like, listen, I think I will make this prediction right now. If they don't bring back a modern day protagonist, if they don't bring back Isu, I mean, this rich history, these rich characters that some genius thought of, some writers came up with this like incredibly complex storyline that was so gripping and unique at the time. If they do not go back to this and they continue to play it safe, the franchise will die. I will bet my life on it. It's already beginning. I mean, this is all coming from somebody who adores Shadows, by the way. I love playing that game, but it feels hollow compared to what we just talked about in the old games. It's the only freaking reason people like the old games in 2026. You think someone wants to go play a PS2 game because of the gameplay and the graphics? No, it's because the story's so goddamn good, and it's better than what they're coming out with these days. And so they better take a hard look in the mirror and say, what are we missing here? Why is the general perception down? And playing it safe is all well and good. And if they play to the casual audience and they'll probably keep making their money, I will be not nearly.
Yeah, they'll always be casual games, and that's it. Because that's all it is really for me. Shadows was fun, but it was a casual game, and I haven't played it since. Yep, yeah, dude, one of those writers back in 2005 was in the room, and they're all like, what if we did a story with assassins and with Templars? And some guy's like, in the beginning, there was the cube. And it's like, just started cooking. Yeah. In the beginning, there was the Isu. And they're like, whoa, what's going on?
Whoever did it, like, they deserve credit. They deserve the love. Like I said, like, those games are all beloved. And it's simply because of what we explained in this episode. And you could probably see why. It reminds me of, like, the Palpatine's plan from Phantom Menace up through Revenge of the Sith to, like, make this big army, and it's so complicated, and how he planned it all, like, it's so well thought out. I think that's what we're missing. We're missing them feeling like they know what they're doing, and feeling like they're planning for the future, and feeling like they have a story that they want to tell. Because who wants to tell the story of Shadows? Was anybody in there going, ooh, this is fascinating? No, it's a standalone game through and through, and I can't even talk about the beginning again because it makes me too mad. I can't do it.
I 100% agree. Well, guys, that's our episode for today. Got to end it kind of abruptly here. Johnny's got a hard cut off right now. Thank you so much for watching. We love you guys. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. If we missed anything factually, I'm sure we maybe missed a few things. Let us know about the Isu. And let us know, I actually, please, if you've made it this far in the video, I want you to comment where you think it could go. Like, what would be the best step forward for the modern day with, considering Basim and Loki and, the sages and all that, and what they could have done with Shadows, not only with a modern day protagonist, but with the Isu in mind and with Basim in mind, where they could have gone and maybe where they will go, hopefully. But I really want to hear that, because that's what I'm all about, is like kind of that fan theory of what could be next. It won't be next. We know it won't be. They're not that good. They're really not. But, it's fun to think where they could go. So anyways, I want y'all to comment that. But thanks so much for doing this tonight, Johnny.
Thank you, Bubba. This was a fun one. It turned out really really fun. I'm sorry it's a little rushed toward the end, but it is true. We have gone through, especially Valhalla and Odyssey, really in depth in some past modern day explanation videos. I mean, we talked about it for like an hour. So I'm glad we went through the old games. That was really fun, and I learned a lot when I was reading about it and stuff. So we hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. We will be back in 2 weeks. Comment also, if you could comment future video ideas. We're open to anything at this point.
We really are. We kind of come up with stuff on the fly.
We have whatever you guys want in the chamber. So comment on this video. What podcast, what topics should we cover in the future? You want more trivia? You want more games? You want more history episodes? Let us know. We love you guys. Thank you so much if you made it all the way through our ramblings. We will talk to you later.